overlooking a beautiful but windy Lake Pontchartrain here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Coming up, the second annual Halter 200 Powerboat Race. Hello, I'm Ron Swoboda. I'll be bringing you the play-by-play for the Halter 200, giving it some color, some flavor. Vince Venno. Vince is the, well, you're the, I guess, competition director for the American Powerboat Association. Last year, the lake was a piece of glass. The catboats, the twin-hulled catamarans loved it. This year, we've got winds 25 to 30 miles an hour out of the south, Vince. Is that going to change things?
Ron, I don't think so. I think it's still going to be a cat race. Lake Pontchartrain was made for catamarans. See, no matter how deep the water is, you're never going to have more than a small chop, even if it's 6 foot. And the catamarans are going to skip along the top, and I think they're going to play havoc with the deep V's.
Well, we got some speed to look for then. There's some boats out here capable of running 100 plus. Maybe some records will fall.
I think you'll see Popeye, who actually happens to be from New Orleans, I believe, in Popeye Chicken. They have a catamaran that was clocked at over 108 miles an hour on the test lake for Mercury.
There's a lot of actually experimental aluminum boats, the Miller Lite. Fava Shoes tried a boat out here yesterday. They're going to go with their wooden one.
Yeah, that's correct. They have a new boat, and it has some ingenious things that I'd like to talk to you about later. But it's not legal for APBA right now until they put on some hatches and do a few other things for it. They do have stringent rules about how to run these boats.
Okay, so we're looking at, well, race time is coming up, I would imagine, in the next few minutes. We'll be back, though, with the start of the Halter 200. Of course, Betty Cook is here. She won this race last year when Satisfaction broke down at, maybe a mile or so from the finish line.
From the finish line. Mm-hmm. I think you'll, although Satisfaction wouldn't want to admit it, Betty is a real professional driver. Betty's the type that'll take the lead in the beginning to know she has the power, and then kind of fall back and watch the other boats play the games. In fact, she's been known to lead people astray. It's amazing what that woman can do. And I'm sure that her feeling was last year is that I'm going to take it at the end, or I'm going to give it my best try.
Well, she, of course, one of the more professional of the racers. Her crew seems to have the maturity, the discipline. This race doesn't always go to the quickest runner.
No, it doesn't, because as we call them, the biggest problem with the fastest runner sometimes are his engines. There are engine manufacturers, the majority of them are by Mercury Marine. But in addition to Mercury Marine, there are many individual boat manufacturers that have engine shops. And one of the problems is what we call hand grenade motors, motors that have 700 and 800 horsepower, but they just don't last. Start of the open class.
The open class
over there
has gotten the gun.
Mm-hmm. And they're running along. This is from one of our helicopters. Excuse me, look at this. I think you see that Michelob?
Yes.
It looks like there's a problem with the side of it.
Oh, my goodness gracious. It looks like it's
we
caved
have,
in.
Exactly. I wonder if we didn't. I bet we've had an accident here.
The Michelob Light now is brand new, never been raced. It's an aluminum,
It's an aluminum catamaran, and it's a riveted hull. It's an amazing hull. And you know what? I bet I know what happened. I could be wrong, but they have a big problem getting on plane because of the weight distribution and the heavy fuel. I'm wondering if someone didn't realize that they just weren't going to get out of their way in time. It looks like it was run right over. God, I hope no one is hurt.
That's Joel Halper, and he's the owner, and he's the driver of that. He's from Tarrytown, New York. Or is it Joe?
No.
Joe Ippolito is going to be driving that.
Joey Ippolito is going to be driving. He's driver of record. It's Joe Halpern's boat. Halpern not only has racing boats, but he has racing cars. He races Grand National, had a few of them at Daytona. He's a businessman from New York and a construction businessman, very successful.
I can understand that. We're talking large dollars in a, well, I guess prototype boat.
Well, we were talking yesterday. We had a chance at the docks to talk, and the impression I got is that, not including racing it, but just building one of these aluminum catamarans, and there are a few of them that we can talk about, but just building one of these catamarans costs somewhere around $250,000. It's just unbelievable. And that doesn't include running it for the year or anything like that. That's just strictly building it and testing it. In fact, here we have the start boat running right now with the yellow flag, and
This is the start of the...
this is the start of, I can't make that out. I think it's the sport class. And it looks like he's waved them on. You'll see the yellow flag, and when he gets them lined up properly, he then drops the yellow flag. There's the green flag right there. And as you can, it's a very tough business to start these boats. Well, we have a quick leader here. I'm not exactly sure. I think that's Shiata. Shiata is a California boat, and I can't see exactly who's next to him, but it's too early in a race to really tell anything. The one thing that you'll discover is that the catamaran boats at the initial start run slower because they have to develop air underneath the hull to lift it out. And sometimes you'll see that they're way back in the pack, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they just leap out front.
I would think the strategy at this point, get to the mark first, the first turn, the first mark, and you'll be running up towards the north end of the lake. Get there first.
That's correct. Checkpoint 1 is approximately 5 miles away, and from there they go right down to the other end of the lake.
Well, this is it, an offshore powerboat, and this is the cockpit. Looks pretty comfortable in here right now, but when you're going 90 miles an hour out in an ocean that doesn't like you, it just doesn't feel the same way. You'll notice that we have 3 seats in here. We call them bolsters. The reason we do that and call them bolsters are because you have to kind of put yourself back because of the G-forces that you experience when the boat leaps out. Well, let's look at what we've got here. We've got a steering wheel. Sounds pretty simple. You can drive the boat and do everything else, but you really can't. You need 2 hands to drive this boat because you've got about 2,000 horsepower on the back end telling you to go 2 different ways. So you have another man right here, and his job is to run the throttles. Right here we have about 2,000 horsepower, and as he pushes it forward, he revs the motors and increases or decreases the speed, just like you hear in the background when they're revving it back and forth. On this side, we have a navigator, and his only job is to find themselves all the time. And it gets a little hectic getting your brains beat out and still trying to remember A, and at 7 minutes at point B. It's tough.
So the production class will be the 4th class. This is Offshore 4, and it looks like they're forming up for a run at the gun.
Yeah, this is the Offshore 3 class, the modified class, and it looks like they're on the run right now.
Okay, so the 3rd class.
We'll see if we can, you'll get an idea on the screen of how they try to line them up. The idea is to, in fact, it's hard for you to see, but you'll notice a catamaran coming out of this crowd. The Bobby Shear catamaran was in the back, way behind, and what he did is he builds up speed way behind, and he comes through the pack at the same time as they drop the green flag and can leap out front. And I'm sure that that's exactly what's going to happen, just a matter of a few minutes. Shear has I believe, the only catamaran in the modified class. He's from Miami, Florida, and this is the boat's debut. I hope they drop the flag pretty soon, otherwise Shear's going to have to drop back a little bit. But I think if they drop it soon, it's going to be some race.
We're back. This is the running of the production class, their start. I'm Ron Swoboda along with Vince Venno. Vince is the competition director for the American Offshore Powerboat Association. And before we get too far into this thing, the television crew really wants to thank the people of Pontchartrain Plaza. They're located in West End Park. And excellent food from the Lake Restaurant, the Happy Buddha Chinese restaurant. Also, Augie's Delago for their around-the-clock patio lounge was open all the time when the crew needed something to keep them going, working late into the night, setting up for this race. We want to thank Augie an awful lot. When a quiet time was needed, or, just a place to relax and gather your thoughts, we retreated to Robert's Reef, where his hospitality was greatly appreciated. These people made a difficult task an awful lot easier.
Well, we were just watching the start of the last class, the Offshore 4 class. The Offshore 4 class this year has two new entries in the catamaran. They're both made by the same manufacturer in New Jersey. The manufacturer's name is, the engine's on Mercury, and it's called a Phantom. It's a very interesting boat. It's their own design, and it is a catamaran, and in fact, they tested one of them. In fact, it's in the lead right now. In fact, it's going to be in the lead for the whole race the way it looks, unless there's a dramatic change in something, or unless he just breaks down. The average Offshore 4 boat ranges in speed in anywhere from about 70 miles an hour to about 75 miles an hour, 76. The catamarans they were hoping would go a little faster. Well, they just couldn't believe their eyes when they took this catamaran out and they tested it. It went 83 miles an hour.
Now they're rounding a mark here. Do you recognize this mark? Is this the first mark?
That's the first mark of the course. That's checkpoint number 1, H1, as it's called on the driver's charts. And they'll be heading up lake towards checkpoint number 2. Looks like we've got a dramatic lead at that point. What I hope for the leaders is that he's got his compasses well calibrated, because one of the loneliest things and the most disappointing things that can happen to a leader is to find out he's off course and sees all the other boats going the other way. It's a real terrible feeling in the pit of your stomach.
Can you tell from this shot here, by the wake they're leaving, they're probably heading towards the northern part of the lake. We thought it would be rougher there. Can you tell if long shot or?
No, that's. I think we're still on the performance class, and I think what you'll see. Yeah, that's P300. That's Veloce. Okay, it looks like we're coming up again on. Is that Fever? I believe that's Fever.
I was milling around the pits too yesterday, Vince, and talking to some of the drivers about some of the little go-fast things, design of the hull, the strakes and things running underneath there, things that make them fly a little bit. These things, unlike automobile racing, where there is not a carryover into production models, if you design a good hull that can run 100 miles an hour, it's good for a lot of boats.
Oh, yes. Well, what we have is in fact, we're looking at right now a Cobra hull. Now, a Cobra hull is one of the original hulls. In fact, Cobra originally was owned by Joel Halter at one time. He no longer owns it, and he was 2 times world champion in that basic hull. Now it's been relegated to you know, an offshore 4 position. That particular hull is a rough water hull. It's not the kind of hull that's going to give you the best speed here. And if they come in, you know, in the top numbers here, it's because of their speed and their ability.
Now you find out how we chart this race. Now we're going to be back, though, in a little bit. This is the production clip.
Louis J. Cooper, Miss Gallo Wine. Lou, let me ask you, you're a senior in racing, and you're a little bit older. Does it hurt you any more than it hurts us?
Well, I'm not so sure I like being called older, but I had my 65th birthday last August. But I've been around racing since I was 19 years old. I started in outboards. I started in the wine business as a wholesale distributor in Detroit in 1946. Gallo has been one of my major suppliers all of these years, and they are now helping me to sponsor my racing activities. Last year and the previous years, I raced in the modified class. This year we decided to go all the way and go up to the sports class, which is the fastest class and the one that finishes the race first.
Thanks, Lou.
Coming back, this is the Halter 200. You're looking at a shot from a helicopter. If it stops or freezes, it is because it's very difficult to get pictures in electronic synchronization from a helicopter. It goes through a machine that says if the frame is not perfect, it stops it on a good frame and it waits until it gets another one.
Very interesting how they've done this. Longshot Productions actually won many awards for this whole concept of trying to cover a sports event. What they do is, on these helicopters, they place large dishes, and these dishes are microwaves, and they beam back to one location. It's a real tough job to align everything, and that's why your screen's going to bounce and, as it does. But
it's a lot smoother than it is on the water, apparently. We're hoping, how long would you estimate at the speeds the open class boats are running that they'll be able to make their first run by the lakefront here?
Well, we calculated at somewhere around 34 to 36 minutes. Well,
let's take a break right now. I've been talking to some drivers and some people connected with the boats, Betty. You've fallen into a role where your pace, your discipline, your control in this particular boat is what a lot of people key on.
I think that we had to prove that, because obviously, you see, I had to bring something more to bear in racing than just muscle. And that was what I tried to do. And I think that professionalism really rubbed off on everyone else.
Are you comfortable being sort of the leader of the pack in terms of being the person they key off of, the boat they key for discipline, for pace in a race?
It doesn't trouble me any. In fact, I think it's added a great deal to the sport that everyone has now assumed that attitude of professionalism.
We're not talking about the Kama, but there are a lot of new designs, new ideas, experiments that are going to be on the water this weekend. Does that mystery sort of add a question in terms of how you're going to run this race?
No, I always have to go run my own race. It really doesn't, that doesn't affect me in any way. But I'm terribly excited about the fact that so much that's new is going on. You know, the marine industry really hasn't had that innovative spirit until really very recently, the last, I'd say perhaps 3 or 4 years. And now it has begun to generate an innovation, which I think is terribly exciting.
Are basically unproven as racers. The surface drive is an idea that hasn't really touched the water yet.
Yes, but you have to try it. You know, it's interesting that about a boat, and this is not true of a car, it's not true of an airplane, that there are no known results until you design it, build it, power it, propel it, and test it. And it's only then that you know what a boat's performance is going to be.
Well, let me ask you this. If you do see some greater success being extracted from these aluminum cats, are we going to see the Kama being painted on a piece of metal?
No, afraid not. I'm going to build a plastic one.
A lot of new equipment out there, a lot of different people leading here. Vincent, a surprising leading boat.
Doing a good job here.
Look,
there he
he's
goes.
rocking. Look at him.
The Bertram hull which Visano runs, is probably been around the longest in the V hull next to the Cobra, or probably as long as the Cobra. It was the first big move in offshore, and it probably has the most lift of any boat in the V hull category. But it's very hard to drive. I mean, you have to be one stupendous driver to handle that boat. You cannot believe the torque that boat has when it leaps from side to side. It's pushing 600 horsepower trying to push you right when it falls one way. 600 or 800 horsepower trying to push you the other way. There's a lot of horsepower and a lot of pushing there. It looks like we have a real duel here between Vincentive and Longshot. Vincentive in normal water, and let's say 2-foot seas like this, normally should have about 3 miles an hour, maybe even more, on Longshot. But obviously, the water tells the story, not us. We can only anticipate. He's doing a heck of a good job there. I think the catamarans, however, are laying back. I still have this feeling that this is cat water, and the catamarans are sitting back there. You notice that Betty flew by Michelle Maynard earlier in the tape. And here we have them just kind of roving along next to one another. I'm sure that Michelle just kicked it up a little bit when he saw Betty pass him, and now the two of them have kind of made a mutual agreement, an unwritten agreement, to go at a certain speed.
I think if this number is correct here, though, it's Vincentive is running second. I'm only assuming that the piece of paper they put in front of me shows the number of the boat and the position they're in. The Kama is number 89, and that's the number 1 boat now. Number 26 is Vincentive. That boat is running second. US 1, of course, Bill Ellswick is running third. Number 13 is Fava Shoes. That's the Fava cat you're looking at there. I have number 13 running fourth at this point. Now that's at 12:31.
The fourth leg. In fact, well, we can see the wakes from the top of the Pontchartrain Plaza now, coming alongside of the causeway, and you can see them right in a row. There's 4 distinct wakes. Okay, well, I think we see Michelle Maynard's boat there for a minute. We have a tape on Michelle, and he's a very interesting person. Maybe we can run that tape now.
A lot of question marks. It's a complete experimental system that we have on this boat, and right now we're trying. We did all kinds of testing in Florida, and I had a chance to be with the inventor of the drives here in New Orleans, so we brought the boat over. We're going to do more testing today, and we'll know a little bit more by this afternoon.
It likes calmer water if it has a choice.
Well, not really as far as the surface drives are concerned. It's not specially for calm water. This particular boat was made to try to run very fast on calm water, but as far as the drives are concerned, it can go on anything.
Looks like we have a very tight spot in first place, and it's obviously between the 2 V-bottoms. It looks like it's between Vincentive and it's Longshot, Bill Ellswick. And boy, it is a duel. Look at that. My goodness.
They're fully aired out now.
Yep.
This is the calm water for them, so they're going to let her rip.
Well, we can see they're pulling a lead. It's Vincentive in front and Ellswick right behind them. And they're...
third behind them.
Betty
The Kama. Is that the Halter Marine? Is that the Halter boat? Or is that the Broward?
I can't see from here.
The Apache, number...
No, I don't know. There they go.
Is that the Broward Cat running fifth?
Well, I was at Lake X when they were testing the Broward Cat, and I was really amazed. It's a well put together boat. But right now, Vincentive seems to be the star, and for good reason. Anyone that can run these kind of speeds in this water and stay ahead of the catamarans, whether they want them to or not, is 10 points in my book. Now, looking back in the pack, There's the Halter cigarette. It looks like it's in about 6th place. And behind him is Fast Company, number 23. That's a newcomer to offshore racing. The interesting thing is that I don't see the boats that we were looking for. I don't see Popeye.
I think maybe Popeye dropped out
Well,
after the accident.
he may have. Then again, he may not have even been aware of the accident. The accident took place and the race started almost immediately after it. There's a strong possibility of that. You'll notice that you usually have two groups. You'll have your front runners, and then you'll have your second string. And that by no means that they're not that fast. But for one reason or another, they usually group together. And everyone at this point is playing games. They're playing strategy. Who's going to dice with who? Who's going to move in front of who? Checking their engines, checking oil pressures, temperatures, water. You know, years ago, if you had a problem in a boat, you had the time to stop that boat, to get out, to repair the problem. If you were down 10 or 15 minutes, you still had a potential of winning. But that isn't any longer. Today, the boats run so fast and so hard that once you break, you're out of it. If you're 5 or 10 minutes down, your chances of coming in first place are really slim or none. That's She-Devil coming up now, and right behind that is the other Halter boat. It's their 39-footer. Now, there's a real rough water boat, that Halter 39. That boat can run in any kind of water. It's like a little tank. And for it to be doing this well in this water is quite a compliment to that boat.
Who's driving that Halter on number 5?
That's driven by Willie Myers. Willie Myers ran with the Tolman Group in England, and he's been in offshore racing for many, many years. Wayne Vickers is at the throttle, and Wayne Vickers used to be the throttle man for Joel Halpern for many years when Joel raced. That's why Joel was not racing this race, but he was rather, a passenger in the boat. Vickers is excellent, and he's obviously doing a heck of a job with that 39-foot cigarette. That's a beautiful shot. Look at that cockpit. Now here we have a boat with the 3 men in it. The 2 front ones, one would be the throttle man, and the other one would be the driver. The navigator sits in the rear, and his biggest job is to kind of point the way. I'll be a son of a gun. That's Nightwings. That's amazing. I've got to tell you an interesting story about them. Nightwings signed up for the race about 4 hours ago. It looks like we have 2 boats coming in now, and again, I'm sure they're in a modified class. And let me see if we can see who they are.
They're running pretty tight, too. Man.
Oh, yeah, and a little wild. Well, there's nothing more exciting than racing neck to neck like that, you know, dicing it. I don't think so. I think we only have, well, they're both racers.
They could, the classes could start getting mixed up at this point, do you think?
We're at the point. That could be, it looks like Black Tornado.